Okay, so this week we have four agendas, three to be exact. One of the item is usual review of last week's to do. We have very specific to dos. I don't mean specific. I mean very special task that needs the attention of this call. So I think we can just proceed to the next item, which is about the Angular app security model. And Brock, I'm not sure if did you get my email?
I saw your email saying that you wanted to talk about it.
It was actually saying I wanted you to talk about it.
Okay.
Okay. So do you think you can go ahead and just address that?
Well, I can't claim to be a expert on Angular security. I do know that I guess my assumption would be that if you're looking for security in an Angular app, like a single page app, against a REST API, which is largely a stateless entity, you either have to either way, I would think that you're going to inject interceptors into your HTTP method to do the authentication for you, I would assume. I just don't know where you guys are in terms of authentication and what the particular issue or questions or concerns are. So I don't want to just talk about the notion of it in an area that I'm not an expert in, just to fill time.
Yeah, Willow,
what's the particular issue?
Willow, is this related to what we were talking about the other day with regards to how authentication is done by OpenMRS REST Web Services?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so
okay, go ahead.
So more specifically, Burke, we wanted to understand, it seems like when we send a request to the session object with our credentials as an authorization header, that the session stays alive afterwards on further requests, independent of whether we include the credentials or the authorization header in the request. And so I don't really understand how OpenMRS is doing it. I was just wondering if maybe you knew.
Yeah, I don't know details about the session, the session object. I mean, how that's modeled in OpenMRS. So we can surely find out. But you're saying that you authenticate and you get a session, and it, even if you don't send credentials, you're still authenticated?
So basically, I think what happens is, my understanding about sessions, as far as the web apps are concerned, they're actually they're handled depending on the container you're using. So Tomcat has a way of doing it, and since you're using Tomcat, you can concentrate on that. But the same app, you should take OpenMRS and deploy it on like WebSphere or JBoss. I think the behavior is going to be different depending on how they've implemented it in those particular containers. Now, when you set headers, usually in the REST web services, what we do is we set headers. We set that authorization header. You send that. When you do that, the session is initialized. Now the thing is that session will still be alive even if you don't do anything. So the next time you send, even though what we do with the REST services in Angular, my understanding is you're still sending the headers. You're still authenticating. Every time you're sending a REST request, you still authenticate. You won't be using the session ID. Now, I think, Jonathan, the problem was we were having those credentials sitting around in memory in the phone or tablet or whatever device you're using, and when you lose that, it means those credentials are available to whoever has access to that device. So I think what we want to understand is how to use the session instead of keeping around those credentials in memory, then just you after authenticating for the first time, then use session ID. I'm not sure if that is entirely possible or how to do that, but maybe that would be the way to do it in order to at least to improve the security of the system.
Okay, let me share a link for you guys just a second. So there's a web page on REST Web Services that includes information about authentication, and it basically says you need basic authentication for essentially every method, except for there's a session endpoint, and that you can, if you authenticate to the session endpoint, you get a JSession ID, essentially a token from the module, from the REST module, and then you can delete that session to effectively log yourself out. And I think the assumption is that JSession ID is a cookie, and that's passed around in all your subsequent calls.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me then. I figured it was something like that.
Yeah, I mean, REST is inherently sessionless by design, but the idea of having to re-authenticate for every call, either you hold on to the username and password in memory and you're passing it around every time, but that has the downside of that anybody that opens up goes to a browser that someone's logged into could look, use a debugger in the browser and see the user's password.
Yeah.
So authenticating, getting a session ID that just will live for the life of the session. I don't know what the default TTL, like how long those cookies are set to last.
Yeah. So
I don't think it's that long.
yeah, in that case, then you will have to re-authenticate again. I mean, if that's what we do with the web app, see, if you're using the regular OpenMS web app, if that session is over, then you are prompted to authenticate again. So that's the behavior you want to encourage. Even in the we have to be. My point is, it has to be in line with what OpenMS is expecting. So if that is the case, then I think it's fine. If the session is gone, then again you'll ask the user to enter their username and password, authenticate again, store the session ID, get rid of those credentials. I guess that's how it should be done.
Yeah, but I think I think that's fine. Burke, this came up in addition to the security issue of, if there's potential situations where a clinician starts an encounter, starts seeing the patient and then comes back to it, at which point the session is expired, and how do we protect against any problems that might cause?
Say that again. The physician's working, and then they come back to it later, and their session's expired?
Yeah, and I just want a predictable response from the web app, and it doesn't do something stupid when they attempt to maybe submit a form or something like that.
Yeah, and there are workarounds for that. Like I shared a link, and I'll put it on today's notes page, of a general approach to put interceptors into the HT method that, the HTTP resource in Angular, you could hook in there and basically intercept and find if you get a not authenticated response, and basically behind the scenes or even prompting the user to log in again, you could re-authenticate the user without, kind of in a natural way.
Yeah, so I think I think the issue was keeping the username and password lying around in memory. And since you have a solution,
Yeah, and in general, you having the username and password stored in a variable would be undesirable, and so you use it long enough to authenticate them, but then you eliminate it.
yeah, so yeah, basically the issue we were discussing, it was about this specifically, and I think even though we may not have solved all the problems related to security because it's a very vast field and there are a lot of things involved, at least we have a solution for that. We can stick to that and then keep on learning on how to improve the things, because I'm not sure. I think we're not going to be able to kind of figure out everything in this call alone, especially that we don't have somebody who is an expert in this.
I agree. I think we can move to the next agenda item.
Yeah. Next one is authentication and REST Angular. This is related to how the dev team is doing stuff in the app right now, the way they're writing code. So actually, I was just wondering. This is more of how to do things. I think, I don't know who, Nikki, I think you're the one who wrote the test for the session service, right?
Yeah, I did. I'm the one who wrote that.
Yeah, okay, so I'm trying to understand how things work here. So basically when I'm writing a test, okay, I think I should share my screen.
Okay.
I'll share my screen in a moment.
Are you guys still there?
Yeah, we're still here. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was trying to write this particular test, and first of all, I was kind of wondering how do you in that authentication service you actually have the is it? Okay, I don't remember exactly where, but there is a place where you can actually set the REST base URL, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so basically, when I was looking at the test you wrote on the session backend, the session service, I saw that I think you used base URL to the PS, ETL1, and all that thing. Are you writing those tests against that server?
Ideally, that would be injected, or like you don't want to have to go out and edit that in every test.
Yeah, that's true. This is just I was just how do I put this? I was trying to figure out things out before I make it. I create something that is gonna be a bit more realistic than this. Yeah. So
Okay. So what you can do, you can use the OpenMRS settings service and just get the base URL and use that. That will still work. So you can inject the OpenMRS settings service in the before each clauses, then just use that.
yeah. So when you're writing this test, do you need to do the authentication yourself?
Um, Actually, when you're writing these tests, you you're actually mocking the server, so you don't need any authentication. And you can write a separate. You actually don't need any authentication. At that point, you assume you've been authenticated and you just mock the responses.
Yeah, I'd agree with Nikki on this. Is that for any of our tests, for our unit tests, they probably shouldn't be connecting to the server. But what do you think?
Actually, I thought from the explanation I got from Nikki and what even he's saying right now, I thought we're not connecting to any server. So when I saw, actually, Nikki, I think I tried to use I tried to follow the example you used in that test, and I think I got this base URL from there because I wouldn't use this URL from this site. So I was wondering whether you are testing this against that server or how exactly are you doing this? I mean, can I just put anything on this base URL and it should work, right? It shouldn't, because I'm just mocking the backend, right?
Okay, that will work, but there are some cases when, for instance, if I switch the service that you're trying to test, if I switch it to another base URL, that means that service will send a request to the other base URL, and your test will still be expecting. They'll still be expecting some response which will never come. So they fail. The tests will actually fail. I
Say this test was wrong. Remember?
Yeah.
So just explain to you that actually you are testing if we had gotten this URL. That maybe we need to remove that. Just explain to him because the backend thing is supposed to mimic the
an
URL
actual
that,
request.
Exactly.
Okay, so but we corrected this. We're no longer specifying the base URL in the tests, so we are just using the one that is set application wide. So if you do that, you shouldn't run into any problems.
Yeah, but the one that is set application wide, it is exactly this URL. So now I'm a little bit confused. I thought it shouldn't depend on any external server. Isn't that the understanding, or am I getting things wrong?
Yeah, Nick, let me, Wheeler, let me just add something on that. So when you're doing your mocks, ideally you don't need to depend on any server. So on that, you're actually right. Nikki was trying just to test, with this particular test was meant to find out if our route is being routed to the right URL. And we kind of agreed that we did this for our first test, but we'll be dropping it because at times we switch from ETL to test, and you'll notice that this particular test fails when we switch. So we agreed that we'll drop that, and I think he has already corrected that. I think in the latest changes, you should be able to get the corrected version.
Yeah, that's great. So basically, anyway, the reason I put this up here is just to get the understanding of how the things are done, and so that we are on the same page, and I don't have to struggle on the things maybe you guys have already struggled. about. So it's okay if there's anything maybe I can improve, I'll just work on that. But I just wanted to get the understanding around these things from your side. Another thing, I just noticed the test files, they're named exactly the same as the files that are not meant for the test. I'm not sure if that is coming from the Papa John or?
It's not coming from John Papa. Actually, if you notice what John Papa does, for his file, he adds the word spec for each and every of his test file. Actually, he adds the word spec. I've seen your proposal. I think your proposal for adding the word test will be good. The reason why we're ignoring is because all of them are actually within the test folder. So the assumption is that the fact that they're appearing within the test folder, all of them are test. But I agree with the idea of adding .test to each and every test that we write.
Yeah, they're in the test folder, but being explicit is good sometimes. So even though they're in test folder, I think it would be good to use the test.js, and I think we don't need to spend more time on that. I hope we agree, right? Right, guys? Is there any objection?
Yeah, I think we agree.
Yeah, actually, we don't have much to discuss about. I mean, those are the things I thought of, and maybe we need to come up with a way of coming upfront with the topics that we need to discuss about. Guys, I think we need to participate more in this process because it's our process, and it's good when we actually together discussing things. It's much easier to come to the conclusion and get the solution other than.
Well, I don't know if you heard me before. Can you discuss rectangular?
Right now, okay, rectangular. Discuss rectangular. Okay. Yeah, I'll share something in a moment, and then I'll discuss.